As soon as I heard the buzz about Zach Cregger's 2025 horror film Weapons, I was intrigued. Many elements of this movie piqued my interest. Amy Madigan's Best Supporting Actress Oscar win for a truly zany-looking Ronald McDonald with a handbag villain, a focus on the personal life of a teacher managing the strains of her job, storytelling through multiple perspectives, and a truly unsettling mystery about a class of elementary schoolers who run out into the night at 2:17 a.m. and disappear from the community. By the end of the movie, I had far more questions than I had answers, and the nagging suspicion that Weapons was an allegory for something. But what? While perusing forums, I tried to find one unifying message Cregger was teaching the audience, but kept bumping into more unresolved mysteries and commenters pointing out holes in each other's theories. Maybe we were approaching Weapons the wrong way. Rather than viewing the film as an allegory for just one social ill, let's reframe it as a mosaic of various broken systems in our society that Cregger is shedding light on. The film begins from third grade teacher Justine Gandy's point of view, so it makes sense to begin with the broken system she represents, society's tendency to blame teachers. At the beginning of the film, distraught parents from Maybrook gather in the school auditorium, demanding answers for their children's disappearance. Immediately, parents like Archer Graff place the blame on Justine, as she was the teacher of the 17 children, including his son Matthew, who ran off into the night with their arms outstretched. The parents yell at Justine and follow her out of the auditorium with a mob mentality, requiring Principal Marcus to escort her to her car for safety. As a teacher myself, I bristled in recognition at their immediate blaming of Justine, even though the children were not in her care at 2:17 a.m. She was off the clock, yet nobody was pointing fingers at the parents who left their front doors unlocked in the middle of the night. Early on, Cregger alternates between humanizing Justine and leaving the audience wondering if the parents' suspicions are correct. Justine is deeply shaken by losing her students and the intimidation tactics of vengeful community members, especially when her car is vandalized with the word witch, which she tries to scrub off to no avail. It is heavily implied that this vandalism is not the work of some mischievous teens, but fully grown, grieving adult Archer, using supplies from his contracting job to terrorize his son's teacher. But Justine is not the picture of innocence either. Her frequent trips to the liquor store highlight that she has a drinking problem, an addiction that leads her to make poor decisions. Encouraging sober ex-boyfriend Paul to drink with her, and then sleeping with him even though he's married, a past DUI, and references to misconduct at a previous school where she worked. But despite the accusations of parents like Archer, Justine's personal issues don't make her guilty of harming the missing kids. Teachers like Justine are complex, imperfect people, but that does not mean that they are unfit to be in children's lives. In fact, Justine's errors with regard to children all come from a place of caring too much for their well-being rather than putting them in danger. Justine is reprimanded for driving a kid home and later for following Alex, the only child from her class who did not disappear, because she's worried about him, an instinct that ends up being absolutely correct. We learn later that Justine is the only person who noticed a change in Alex Lilly after Aunt Gladys moved in, and was the only safe adult close to him that he could confide in. Through Justine, Cregger asks us to interrogate society's tendency to blame teachers for anything that happens to children, a pattern that has only increased as the blame for issues facing America's youth are routinely placed on teachers accused of corrupting the children in their care. But it doesn't have to be this way. Ultimately, the children in Weapons are rescued once Justine and Archer band together, forming a united parent-teacher team to protect the children they both deeply care for. As the film continues, characters start to have nightmares that foreshadow the real villain all along, Gladys. And it's no accident that two of the people most haunted by visions of Gladys have something else in common. Both Justine and comic relief character James are in the throes of addiction to alcohol and heroin, respectively. For Justine, alcohol is a means of coping with the stresses of her job, particularly after the children's disappearance. Given the familiarity with which Justine walks through the liquor store and grabs 2 bottles of vodka, we get the sense that drinking this much is a long-standing habit for Justine, and she bears the weight of this unhealthy coping mechanism alone. Besides an offhand reference by her principal to mental health coverage under her health insurance plan, Justine is not provided with any resources, support groups, or attempts to ease the stress she escapes from through drinking. Her drinking is brought up as a personal moral failing by Archer, but it's really a system problem. Instead of alleviating the flaws in our education system that drive teachers to drink, our society blames the individual and leaves them to fend for themselves against alcoholism and visions of Gladys. Similarly, James's heroin addiction sheds light on society's broken approach to addiction and homelessness. After breaking into cars and stealing electronics to fund his addiction, James is apprehended and then punched by Paul after he's accidentally stuck by one of James's needles. Nowhere in the film is James offered housing, support, or addiction treatment, leaving him caught in a vicious cycle and vulnerable to being haunted by Gladys. Through James and Justine, Cregger exposes the degree to which our society lets people with addictions flounder in private as a means of coping with flawed systems like homelessness and professional burnout. Paul furthermore shows the cracks in our policing system. Through his altercation with James, Cregger sheds light on the brutality and corruption within the system that largely goes unchecked. After all, Paul's police chief father-in-law seems far more concerned about how dashcam footage of Paul will impact the force's reputation than on the fact that he punched an unarmed homeless man. The bureaucracy of the police force also stalls the case, leading the biggest breakthroughs to occur outside the scope of the largely ineffective police force. Citizen investigations by Justine, Archer, and James lead them to Alex's house and the rescue of the kids. The only police officer who investigates the house, Paul, goes without official backup out of concern for his own reputation, since James going on record about his observations could lead to the discovery of Paul's unprofessionalism. It's important to note, though, that Cregger is highlighting the brokenness of the policing system, but not demonizing the people who work in it. Paul punches an unarmed civilian, but he's also supportive of Justine when the whole town turns against her and struggles with his own addiction issues. After cuffing James, Paul repeatedly asks if he's okay and admits to doing James wrong once his panic about the needle stick subsides. Cregger humanizes Paul as a person while still highlighting the brokenness of policing. Now we arrive at the most enigmatic part of the movie, Aunt Gladys. Given how Cregger holds a mirror up to issues in our modern society, it only makes sense that Gladys symbolizes another broken system. But which one? Here are 2 compelling theories. Interpretation A: Aunt Gladys is the internet. Aunt Gladys is a parasitic being, as she requires the life force of others to revitalize her from her mysterious illness. Using her magic stick, she brainwashes her victims, leaving them in a trance until she activates them to do her violent bidding. On a symbolic level, Gladys could represent the internet or social media, which survives through an algorithm that preys on its users and leads them down a path of desensitization and radicalization. Just like the internet, Gladys proves most powerful over children, though adults like Alex's parents and Marcus do fall under her spell. Another reason I can't help but connect Gladys to the internet is the ridiculous run of all of her victims. The sinister Naruto run looks like a weird TikTok trend sweeping the youths, and it fittingly went viral over the summer when the film was released. The most chilling parallel between Gladys's witchcraft and the internet involves just how hard it is to reverse the effect on its victims. When Alex breaks Gladys's magical stick, his classmates are activated and chase her across the neighborhood before ripping her apart with the type of screaming abandon you'd expect from little kids playing in a ball pit. Yet, after Archer rescues Matthew, he remains catatonic, while a child narrator explains that some of the victims have only just begun to speak again. This parallels the lasting effects of excessive internet use on today's children. I myself have been shocked by the desensitization of my students, who watch videos of real-life violence with only a dead-eyed stare. If we interpret Gladys as an incarnation of the evils of the internet, Cregger seems to be warning us of the lasting damage this broken system can leave on its users, especially children. Interpretation B. Aunt Gladys represents the radicalization of a school shooter. By titling a movie about a classroom weapons, Cregger definitely wants us to consider this parallel. Seeing a near-empty classroom, an auditorium of mourning parents, and the machine gun hovering in Archer's dream makes this interpretation inescapable. But this interpretation of Aunt Gladys becomes more compelling in the last chapter of the film, which follows third grader Alex Lilly's perspective. Initially, we watch Alex get bullied by Archer's son Matthew, who kicks Alex and mocks him when he begs his classmates to stop. In the next scene, sick Aunt Gladys arrives to live at the Lilly house, frightening Alex before brainwashing his parents and threatening to hurt them unless Alex brings her the personal effects of his classmates. Here, Gladys's mysterious sickness and insidious takeover of Alex's life could represent a bullied child's mental illness and subsequent radicalization that he does not fully understand. Given how often school shooters are radicalized through the internet, this interpretation of Gladys could still be compatible with the internet theory. It's not a perfect allegory, though. If Alex is meant to represent a school shooter, why is he motivated by protecting his parents rather than a desire for individualistic revenge? If he's consumed by violent thoughts, why is he painstakingly feeding his classmates soup, even his bully? Because of Alex's altruistic actions, I'm less inclined towards the school shooter theory, but I still see merit behind this interpretation. Weapons is not a neat and tidy allegory for one social problem, so it can be frustrating for viewers who want concrete, definitive answers. But in my opinion, the messiness makes the film interesting and prevents it from being too preachy about one specific issue. The many loose ends surrounding Gladys and her witchcraft leave the door open for a juicy prequel, where maybe we can finally learn how she got sick, where she developed her powers, and what is going on with her zany outfits and affinity for bonsai trees. And I have no doubt that Cregger will highlight other broken systems that made her the bizarre supervillain that terrorized Maybrook. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more film analysis. Until next time.